My name is Hannah Kosc, and I am a student at Georgetown University majoring in international political economy. I'm also the president of Georgetown Israel Alliance. I want to first introduce you to Natan Sharansky, Gil Troy, and Barry Shrage, who will be answering a question on the topic of doublethink on campus today, from Natan Sharansky and Gil Troy's book, Never Alone. Thank you all for being here today. In your book, you discuss the idea of doublethink on college campuses, Natan and Gil, where liberal and progressive Jewish students have to choose between being progressive advocates or standing up for Israel and the Jewish people. How can we as students combat this doublethink and build spaces for pro-Israel progressive members of our community?
Well, let me start from taking you back to the Soviet Union to explain the phenomena of doublethink. I was 5 years old when I started my life as a loyal Soviet citizen. It was the day when Stalin died, and my father explained to me and my 7-year-old elder brother that it is a great day for Jews, that really we were in the middle of big troubles, but miracle happened. Stalin died. It's very good for us, for Jews. But he added, don't say it publicly. Do what everybody does. And next day I go to the kindergarten and I cry together with all the children about death of Stalin. And I sing songs about the son of all the world, great Stalin. And I have no idea how many children are really crying and how many of them are crying exactly as I, because their father told them they have to pretend. That's how you start and continue your loyal life as Soviet citizen. In fact, there is double life. One life is what you have to publicly to say, what you proclaim, how you vote, how you make your appearances in the public life. And all your career depends on this. But you know that all this is lie. But the truth, you can speak only in your family, with the closest people. And then, of course, you hear from a parent that as a Jew, you have to be the best in your class in physics, mathematics, whatever, because that's how we Jews survive. And you're trying to get to the best university. But you know that part of this, you have to pretend, you have to get good marks on physics and mathematics, but you have also to get good character reference from Komsomol. And that's why you continue this double life. And for me, it was clear after I overcome this and became a free person, dissident, free person in Soviet Union, it was clear to me that this double think is the phenomena of the totalitarian regime. And what I learned then, that in fact, phenomena of double think is typical for all the dictatorships. That in all dictatorships, people suffer from this double think, and they are very happy when they get rid of it, when they start saying what they really think. And then many years after, enjoying freedom in the free world, fighting against anti-Semitism, I was surprised to hear in Harvard, in Yale, in Berkeley, from a postgraduate of business school, how much she wanted to sign the letter in support of Israel, but she knew that her 3 important professors will not like it. And that's why for her career, she decided to wait for a few years when she'll be already in a successful career. Then she'll start speaking what she really thinks about all this BDS campaign. And there were many other examples. And my problem was not with those who are absolutely anti-Zionists, who were against Israel. As one student told me in Canada, he said, for me as liberal Jews, it's much better if Israel doesn't exist. That's really minority. But there is such a big silent majority of young Jews who prefer not to speak publicly what they think about Israel in order not to undermine their career or their friendship and so on. Gil, will you continue for this?
Salute all you Hillel heroes, because it's not easy these days. And I really want to apologize in the name of my generation of professors. You know, I love the university. I'm a case of arrested development. I got to the university and never left, became a professor. And it's so painful that we come to the university and rather than seeing it as a place of open thought, of critical inquiry, of place where we can be a little bit countercultural, a little bit out of the box, a little bit iconoclastic, so many of you feel this pressure to fit in, to follow a certain party line, So many of you feel bullied. That's an assault on your freedom of thought. It's a violation of every principle that I was raised at about what a liberal, lowercase l, academic experience should be. So first, I really want to apologize. And secondly, let's nuance it. That Natan and I are on the same page. Sometimes when you come across an intellectual bully, an intellectual totalitarian, you have to have a clear red line and there's no conversation. But when so many of us on campus, over 80% of American Jews are progressive, and that's outside of campus. On campus, probably even more so. And you're told we have a choice between being progressive or Zionist, and it's a painful choice. Part of us can call out the totalitarianism, and sometimes that's necessary. But sometimes someone's really asking, how do we do this? And there we have to lean in, and we have to listen. And I think the two things that guide me are, one, when you talk about any country, is it a legitimate country or is it an illegitimate country? Is it a democracy or is it an autocracy? And Israel passes that test. Israel is a legitimate country and it's a democracy. And so all the demonization, all the obsession somehow becomes not our problem. Daniel Patrick on the accused, but ask what's wrong with the accuser. So stop apologizing. But let's point out, A, Israel is a legitimate democratic state, one of the few countries in the world that's part of that special club. And the second piece of it is that you ask the question, would I rather be an Israeli Arab, a Palestinian dealing with Israelis, Israeli, left, right, center, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or today? And we call this in our book, Never Alone, the directional signals. In which direction is Israel going? And when we see that on the whole, by almost any standard, LGBTQ, approach to Palestinians, social welfare, prosperity, almost any indicator, the indicators are that Israel's going in the right direction, then you say, of course there are problems, but they're fixable. They're fixable, then you really need the progressive voice. Then you really need the liberal voice if you come from that camp, not to demonize, not to delegitimize, but say, okay, let's roll up our sleeves and fix it. So to create this false choice, I have a choice between being progressive or Zionist, no. And let's also look at the origins of the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement was born in socialism. The Zionist movement was born in liberal nationalism. The Zionist movement was born in many ways from the left. And it's upon the left to take that heritage and continue it and improve it.
Barry, would you like to share some of your perspective on this issue as a
Sure.
expert in the
First
field?
of all, it's always been an honor to be with Gil, and especially with Natan. I always feel like get nervous when I'm in a room with Natan because he represents so much that was so important to me throughout most of my life. A true hero, and in a way, he kind of helps us to answer this question for ourselves in terms of our own self-respect and dignity. In other words, you know, he speaks in the book about in huge hypocrisy, the Communist Party would talk about good nationalism and bad nationalism. Good nationalism were the ones that served that enslaved themselves to the party, and the bad nationalism were those that opposed their autocratic ends. And there's a question about which side do you want to be on. Natan was very clear in the book. They were asking him to lie. They were asking him to degrade himself by lying and refusing to be who he was. Forget about who he was, what he believed. In other words, it's putting a patina of lies and hypocrisy. It, in a sense, makes your life into a lie. Look, if you truly believe in the other side, you've got to believe in the other side. But if you care about your own people, every minority on campus is expected to love and stand up for their minority, except us. This is hypocrisy in the worst way. It basically asks us to take the blue pill, you know, in the Matrix, you know, and not to be true to ourselves, not to be real, not to see the world as it really exists. And for me, the worst part of this is it forces us to live a life of lies if we're not willing to stand up. Look, Natan spent decade in prison in order to be who he was. All they're asking us to do, all we're asking ourselves to do, is to be outside of the in-group of progressives. And for me, being progressive, not being intersectional, but not being into woke culture, but truly caring about other human beings is extremely important. Again, Natan's life is a great example of that.
Thank you so much, Natan, Gil, and Barry, for answering my question and sharing your wonderful insights. You are all truly inspirational people. And thank you for watching the first episode of Never Alone, Short Answers to Deep Questions.